So, good evening. My name is the Reverend Dr. Arlisha Simmons. I'm the East Regional Associate Director here with the North Carolina Council of Churches, and I work with partners in health and wholeness. We are grateful for your presence tonight with us as we discuss back to school supporting children's mental health. As we would enter tonight's conversation, if you know of someone who would be interested in this conversation, it's not too late for you to send them the link so they can join us on this evening. But as stated earlier, you will receive the recording or the link to the recording, as well as other resources that will be shared. And so before we begin this evening, I wanted to just take a few minutes for a moment of centering. And I'm going to mute my mic just for a second so that I as we would enter this time, may we center our hearts and our minds and our spirits for just a few minutes. As you come into this space, may we all take a deep breath and then release through our mouths. And let us pray. As we gather tonight in a world that feels a little unsure, possibly unsafe, and maybe even unstable, we go to the rock that is higher than I. We go to God who sees us and who knows us, a God who knows both calm and a God who knows us in chaos. We come tonight maybe with mixed emotions, but even in all of our emotions and our uncertainty, we come with the hope for the children who are in our care, in our families, and in our communities. So tonight, we come to discuss the emotional well being of our children in a world where they must be concerned about things like school shootings and encounters with ICE and not having enough teachers or bus drivers, and for some, not having enough food. We come because we are concerned about those who come behind us. We are concerned about them, and because we love and desire to care for them, we come because we want to better support them and not only care for them spiritually, but also care for them emotionally. And so tonight we invite the Holy Spirit into this time of learning and sharing. And we ask the Spirit to be with all of our children and with all of the parents and with all of those who are mourning and with all of those who are uncertain about our future. But because there is the hope and the belief that God is with us, we know that God will be with us not only tonight, but in the years to come. And because we have entered into this discussion and we will not allow this discussion to end here, we pray that the children will find us faithful. This is our prayer. Amen. The, Tonight, we want to just make sure that you are aware of all of the staffers of the Partners in Health and Wholeness team. Of course, my name is Arlisha Simmons. We have the Reverend Carolee Hall, who's our West Regional Associate Director. On the line tonight is Donna Parks Hill, who is our Associate Director for Community Health. And also with us tonight is Meredith Rawls. We also have our intern tonight, and Cheryl is with us. We are excited about Cheryl, who is studying at UNC Charlotte. And so if you get an opportunity, maybe she'll contact you for something. We just are excited to have her with us at this time. But before we move on into our program, we have a number of announcements. We will also share links for you to register for all of these announcements in our chat. And so if you have not registered or you have not seen our mailings, if you're on our list, you received one today. In October, we are having our Hope and Wellbeing in the High Country. a summit on faith and behavioral health at the First Presbyterian Church in Boone, North Carolina. And so all of you are invited. If you have any questions about that, you can contact Donna or Carolee, and they can better help you with any questions you might have about that particular event. And so we invite you to register as soon as possible. Registration just opened. And so we will spend the day in the high country discussing mental health and behavioral health. And we are very excited that this is the 90th year of the North Carolina Council of Churches. And so, as we celebrate with our grand celebration on November the 1st, we invite you to join us at Edenton Street United Methodist Church in Raleigh. And the speaker of today, we will have a number of speakers, but our keynote speaker for the day will be the Right Reverend Michael B. Curry. And so, we are excited to have Bishop Curry with us on that day. We'll also have Duke Divinity School professor Kate Bowler, and they will be in conversation. And so if you have not registered for that event, we encourage you to come and join us. Our final announcement for the evening is about our Abundant Life Congregational Study Guide. We were previously mailing this guide out, but now we are inviting you to download it. We are upgrading and providing some other resources to you. And we're also, in a few months, will have a Spanish language edition. And so for now, we encourage you to access the digital copy, to use it in your church. You can add to it, or you can take from it and decide how to use it in whatever way possible. And so we are excited about that. We also have some other resources we'll be adding to our online database. So please make sure that you continue to visit our website for that. So all of the announcements are out of the way, and now I will stop sharing, and I am going to highlight for you our speaker of the hour. And so we are so excited to have Orlando Dobbin with us. He is a former school counselor who now works for the Center for Resilience and Learning. And he'll share a little bit more information about himself. We are excited that he is with us tonight. He cares about children, he cares about family. He is a graduate of App State. And we are just excited. We've been trying to get him to be with us for a couple of months, but he's so busy. He's in demand because he is sharing with educators across the state of North Carolina how we can better care for and support our children. And so, Mr. Dobbin, we are excited that you are with us tonight. And at this time, we give you the floor to share what God has given to you for those of us who work in churches and faith communities who interact with the young people across the state. Thank you so much.
Awesome. It's so great to be with you all today. Yeah, just really think all the work that is happening is super beautiful, and I'm really pumped and jazzed. I get to play a small part of it. So we're going to get started. Can everybody see the screen? Awesome. Cool. Yes. So as Reverend Simmons said, I'm here. I'm going to be chatting a little bit about supporting youth mental health needs as they transition back to school. I think most of our students across the state have been in school a couple weeks now. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to help them with transition back to school. But I think the things I'm going to share today are going to be relevant for not just school transitions, but any type of transition. And as Reverend Simmons said, my name is Orlando. I work for the North Carolina Center for Resilience Learning, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I would love to hear about where you all are coming from today. So I would love to know your name and maybe what is your role in working with youth? Are you a parent? Are you a grandparent, aunt, uncle? Do you work with youth in the school setting, after school setting? So we'd love to hear what your role is in supporting youth. I'll give a few minutes for people to comment in the chat. Also, for today, the materials that I invite you to have with you one is a phone. We are going to use a phone just for scanning some QR codes throughout the presentation. And then paper and pencil for an activity that we're going to do. So if you have those things, that'd be great. If not, it's not mandatory. Your presence is all that is most important. All right. So, what I would love to start off with is I want you to think about a time where you had to transition to something new. Maybe it was a new class, maybe it was a new job, maybe it was a new church, maybe it was a new um, training. But I would love for you to think about what is it, when is the time that you transitioned to something new? How did it feel? One, and then what helped ease the transition? So when is the time that you had to transition to something new? How did it feel? And what helped ease the transition? I'll give people a couple minutes to think about it. Um, you can put your answer in the chat or you can unmute yourself and share. Friends and a sense of community helped ease the transition. I'll give a few more minutes for people to think. All right, so another a few things. Moving to a new neighborhood. Transition was eased with grandfather, with people. Um, that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, everyone. So just a simple transition that I had this summer is I took a training. I remember on the training that I went to was for an organization. It was with the organization called Technology of Participation. It was about facilitating. But before the training, I was feeling really nervous because I was there by myself. I was in another city and I was feeling really anxious about it. I just wasn't sure about how it was going to go. So change transitions are something that we all face, not just our youth, but something that we as adults face on a pretty consistent basis. And there are some pretty standard things that can help with those transitions, whether it's an adult or a child. And for me, what this organization did to help ease that transition is they sent out an email to let us know what the schedule is going to be for today. They introduced themselves via the email to just kind of front load some information. The second thing that they did is that when we came in, there was a schedule on the wall so that we knew exactly what was going to happen during the day. And there was a nameplate for us, so we had a place where we could belong right away. And then they had some connection cards for us to connect with the people around us to allow us to start to get to know people, to build relationships. And then they had some snacks on the table, which, that always helps with the transition. And so some of the same things that help us as adults transition to new things also help youth. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. But before we do that, I'm gonna share a little bit about myself. So, as Reverend Simmons said, my name is Orlando. I grew up in Eastern North Carolina. So, shout out to all the Eastern North Carolina people I saw in the chat. Saw Tarboro represented and a couple other places. And it's cool that we have so many people from across the state here with us today. But I grew up in a small town called Windsor in Bertie County. And as Reverend Simmons said, I went to Appalachian State for undergrad and then UNC Chapel Hill for graduate school. And professionally, I've worked as a group home resident assistant and worked most of my career as a school counselor. And now I work as a regional director for the North Carolina Center for Resilience Learning, where we offer training for schools and anybody really about trauma-informed practices and how to incorporate trauma-informed practices into schools and organizations. Outside of those things, I love to play sports, be outdoors, tell stories, and just have a good time. All right, so our agenda for today is we will be sharing a little bit about tips for adults when it comes to transitions, and strategies for students to help them with their transitions with school and otherwise. And then lastly, I'm going to be sharing some resources with us all. But the first thing that I would love for us to do is take a look at this picture. So take a look at this picture. I want you to see, what do you know? Pay attention to what you notice, what you see. And then in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, I would love for you to just tell me what you notice. Mom is not happy. Yep, the kid is relaxed.
I see someone who is the child is obese, eating a lot of junk food. Really, I guess, far as not being disciplined, far as cleaning. Someone who's using a lot of cell phone use.
Can I?
Yeah, thank you, Judith. Yeah, yes, kid who's eating a lot of junk food. I saw, yes, the mom has a very unhappy expression on her face. The environment is chaotic. Um, Stuff everywhere.
I,
Someone mentioned
I
the healthy.
see that I see that there are tools for a healthier lifestyle in the picture, but they're not being used. Like there's healthy food in the mom's bag. There's a vacuum in there, but they're not being utilized. The environment's still chaotic.
Yeah, there are tools, but the tools aren't being used. Yeah, I love that. So now what I would love for us to do is take a quick look at this picture from a strengths-based perspective. So when we use a strengths-based lens, what do we see in here that would in it what are some positive things that we see in here? And you all have already named a couple, which is awesome. But what are the other things that we see going on in this room that might be positive? Yeah, the child's not afraid of his mom. You can tell there's a relationship there. Warm clothes. Yeah, needs are met. Kid is just being a kid. Yeah. So yeah, to echo some of the things that y'all shared, the mom is present and the kid, you can tell there's some type of connection. The kid feels safe. And the kid is doing what kids do, relaxing, watching some television, it looks like. As I was mentioned earlier, there's fresh food in the bag, so you can tell that the mom um, cares for a child. The mom cares that the environment is chaotic. It's not like she's apathetic about it. Also, if you look at the sink is immaculate, other than the sock on the counter, but the dishes look way better than dishes in my cabinet right now. The sink is in cabinet. There's a plant that's still alive over there, which is awesome. Um, and the mom is present, right? The mom is in the room. So there's a lot of really, really great things happening um, with this mom and what she's doing with her kids. And the first thing that I want to start with is when it comes to working with youth and helping them transition to new environments, it starts with recognizing the strengths that we have in within ourselves. I know sometimes when I'm working with youth or I'm helping my nephew and he's having a hard time making a transition into the next stage of life, it's easy for me to notice all the things that I'm not doing. Um, how I should be hanging out with him more, how I should ask him these different questions to kind of unlock something in him. But the first place that's important to start is with our strengths and with the things that we're doing well. Because the youth in our lives, the community that we're in, they're so lucky to have each and every one of you. Each one of you bring a special gift, a special talent, a special thing to the communities that you're in that is irreplaceable. And it's important to make sure that we start with a place coming from a place of strength and the things that we can do instead of the things that we can't do. And so I would love if y'all will indulge me to just like name a strength that you feel like you bring to the communities that you're in, um, whether it's your charisma, um, or artistic abilities, your structure, your presence. I would love for you to just name a strength that you bring to your communities. Love and empathy. I love that. Listening, understanding, genuine caring. Yeah, beautiful. So as we start this journey and talking about how to support youth, I want you just to remember to ground ourselves in the God-given gifts and that you have and some of the skills and things that you developed over time that you bring to the communities that you're in, and to ground yourself in those whenever you are engaging with youth work. All right, so we're going to start with you. When it comes to helping youth transition to school or just any environment, it starts with us and our emotional landscape because our emotions are contagious. The emotions that we feel will spill out from us, spill out from our cup and onto our youth cups if we aren't being sure that we are aware of what we're feeling and how we are managing it. And so it's really important for us to start with self awareness. Um, because if we're feeling stressed out about our students going back to school, if we're feeling stressed out about a transition that is coming up, it is likely that the youth and around us will feel stressed out as well. So there are a few ways that you can practice some self-awareness. One is a body scan. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with body scans, but body scans are just where you take a minute to take a deep breath and to be aware of what's in your body. So you kind of do a scan from your head to your toe to kind of feel what you're feeling in your body, where you're feeling it, so that you can be aware of your feelings. Another way of being and increasing your self-awareness is through emotional tracking. In my journal, I like to keep just like a record of how I'm feeling each day. So I'll rate it on the scale of 1 to 5. And that's just been a really cool tool for me to check in and see what my emotional range has been over time so that I can be aware if I have been scoring really low a few days in a row. I can be aware of that and be give me a cue to check in and see what's going on. But emotional tracking and logging can be a really cool way to increase your self-awareness of how you're feeling and what you're feeling inside. And then lastly, just a reminder, emotions are contagious. If we aren't tracking and being aware of the emotions that we have, like I said earlier, it's very easy for them to spill out onto other people. Um, we all have these mirror neurons. And so when we are around people, the feelings that we have can sometimes be caught. And so if you are able to be aware of your emotions and where you're at, and make sure that you're using tools to keep yourself calm, oftentimes that can help your youth feel calm too about the transitions that they have. And so, yeah, well, I would love to just hear how are you feeling today? Let's do a emotional check-in right now. Um, there's the egg carton on the sheet on the screen, and so we'll love to hear what egg carton do you feel like? Do you feel like you are a 1 right now? All your eggs are full and they are uncracked. Do you feel like you're a 2, where you have most of your eggs, but a couple of them are cracked? You have to throw a couple of them out. Are you a 3 or 4 or 5? How are you checking in today? And this is one resource that I'll share. This image comes from a website called Ed Tomorrow. They have a lot of free resources that you can use to check in with yourself or with others. Okay, a lot of 3s. As Reverend Simmons said, there's a lot going on, so it makes sense. Um, 3, 4, 2. Awesome. So the first step when it comes to helping youth transition is to make sure that we're aware of our own emotional landscape so that we aren't um, unintentionally passing on anxiousness or anxiety to the youth that we're with. So now we're going to talk about once you're aware of your emotions and what's going on, it's important that you have a toolkit that you can use to help manage your emotions. And I'm sure a lot of you have already thought and talked about this before, but I'm just going to share a couple different strategies that I like to use and that we often recommend with the staff that we work with to help them have resets when they notice that their emotional landscape needs to shift. So first thing is to reframe your stressor or the obstacle as a challenge or as a as kind of an obstacle to overcome. Research has shown that when you reframe the stressor as a challenge, it can help you feel more activated to act towards it and respond to it versus when you think of it as just a stressor, it can just be something that feels heavy and that you can't do anything about. So the first step is reframing your stressor as a challenge. Um, Second thing is taking breath work is just really important. That's one of the primary things that helps calm our nervous system when our nervous system is feeling a little dysregulated, when we're feeling a little emotionally heightened. Deep breaths can help send cues to our body that we're safe, that we're okay, that we are going to be all right. So taking deep breaths is a really important tool. The third tool that I want to share is called a gratitude flow. So when you find yourself in a situation where maybe you're stressed out about an upcoming change that your youth that you work with is facing, or maybe you're feeling stressed out about the current state that they're in. What a gratitude flow can be a really quick way to just shift the thinking, shift your mindset so that you can be present. And then the last one is favorites album. So favorite albums is one of my favorite things to do. And so that is just where you have an album of photos that are just your favorites that you love to that remind you of some good times. You have an album of favorite songs that you can go to when you're feeling like you're in a rough spot, and then you have an album of favorite videos. And so having a favorites tool can be really nice because there's something that you can quickly access whenever you find yourself in a emotionally fragile space. I particularly love having a favorite photos album, and my favorite thing to do with that is to share it with a friend, because then when you share it with a friend, somebody around you, you not only get the positive response from looking at something that's your favorite, but then you get the positive feedback from being able to share it with a friend. So I would love for us to try one of these right now, if you all are okay with that. And we can do, um, I would love for us to try the gratitude flow. So I would love for us to take 30-second or a minute and just either write down on a piece of paper. You can write it down in the chat, but just write down and think about 5 things that you're grateful for today. Awesome. I love looking at all the things that people have to be grateful for. So again, the 4 tools were reframing a stressor as a challenge, taking deep breaths, gratitude flow, and favorites album. I really needed that gratitude flow. That was helpful for me to just ground myself in gratitude. All right, so now we're going to transition to talking about youth and what are some strategies that we can use to support youth who are transitioning back to school or, like I said, transition to just something different. And the first thing that I want to share about is the importance of front loading. When we front load a change or transition for a student or youth, it can be hugely impactful to helping them reduce uncertainty and stress. It can make students feel a lot more confident when they know exactly what to expect. Front loading also can create some clearer expectations, which can prevent youth from having overwhelming feelings about an upcoming change. And lastly, it can help them feel cared for because they know that the adults are looking out for them. Research has shown with students who are transitioning to a new school that those who receive some type of orientation or pre-transition support report having lower anxiety and having higher engagement in their new environment. So there are a few different ways of front loading. You can, if it's a transition to a new school, you can see if you can set up an opportunity to visit the school ahead of time or visit the classroom. That's why schools often times have open house to front load for students the change that is happening. You can front load also by sharing your own story. If you have gone through a similar change that the student or the youth is getting ready to go through, you can share your own story of going through that change and how you were able to overcome it and navigate through that adversity. Um, Secondly, or thirdly, you can front load by connecting the student or the youth through email with the teacher and reviewing the schedule and reviewing what the first day is going to look like, reviewing the expectations that the student has to look forward to. And lastly, you can always um, front load by having an opportunity for your youth to have a phone call either with a teacher or an adult or somebody who's been in the shoes that the student is getting ready to step into, or talking to a buddy or a peer, which can be really powerful to help them reduce stress and anxiety around an upcoming change. I used to work at a summer camp, and at the summer camp, every time before the new week, we had to call all of our parents on the Sunday night to just introduce ourselves to the parent as the youth counselor, let them know what they had coming up this week. And it was awesome. About 99% of the time. There's one time where I called the mom, and I was like, "Hey, my name's Orlando. I'm really excited to um, be your son's counselor." And she said, "What? Excuse me? Why are you calling me?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just introducing myself." And then she said, "It is 8:45 at night. Why are you calling me so late?" And I totally forgot it was summertime, so it's still light outside. So I called her like right before bedtime, and she gave me a proper fussing out. So if you're making a phone call, just make sure you do it while before someone's bedtime. But front loading can be a really key way to help reduce youth stress and anxiety that they might feel before a change. And that's what the organization did for the participants in the training that I mentioned earlier. They front loaded by sending us email with the schedule, sending us some information about what to expect, and by giving us a picture and a bio of who they were. You know, the Council of Churches did a great job of front loading. They sent an email, they sent my picture. So they could have done the presentation probably with me today. The second thing is routines. Routines are a really important way of providing the structure and the predictability that students need to have in order to reduce their anxiety and stress. When you create routines, it can allow students to not focus on the logistics of things. It can allow them to not have to focus on how things are going to happen, but it allows them to instead focus on the academics that they're going to school, or it can allow them to focus on making new friends or the social interactions that they're going to have, or it can help them focus on just whatever is going to be presented to them that day. When we create routines and structures, it just frees up headspace for them to be present in their environment. And there are lots of different ways that you can have routines. A few simple strategies that I like to use are starter day rituals. My dad, when I was growing up until about high school, every morning would like he wasn't a gentle waker up. He would like just turn on the lights and say, "Rise and shine." And even though as a kid it wasn't like my favorite thing, I still like when I think about it now, it brings a smile to my face. And just like having that same phrase when I woke up every morning was comforting to me. But you can have your own morning ritual. So maybe it's you start off with a little bit of music in the kitchen while someone is drink or eating breakfast. Maybe your ritual is when they come to the youth learning center, you have like an intro song. I know at one organization what they do is when their students enter into the program, they make a little line, like the adults are lined up, um, almost making a tunnel, and then the students walk through the tunnel, which is just I think it's really cool. Or your morning ritual can be some type of daily affirmation. Um, Uh, Another way of creating routines is through posting schedules and making it visible what the expectations are during the day. You'll see in classrooms now that oftentimes they have their schedules on the wall so that students have a visual cue of what they have to expect during the day. And I know when I'm in a training, it helps me to have an agenda, a program, just something so that I can know what I have to expect um, during the day. And lastly, you can have an end of day ritual. So maybe at the end of every day, you make sure that your buddy has their favorite snack. Maybe it is you have a ritual for how you greet them when they come back to you. But having an end of day ritual can also be something that can help students. So maybe you have a student or a youth who's having a hard time with that transition back to school. If you have an end of day ritual, then it gives them something that they can look forward to once they get through their day. So I would love to hear, did any of your family members or any of your teachers or schoolmates, did y'all have any rituals that you all were exposed to as children? Maybe your parents also said rise and shine. But were there any rituals that you felt like your loved ones did to help ground you into the present? That's funny, Cheryl. I guess that's one way to get your wheels turning. Oh, I love that. Eating breakfast together. All right. We will move on to the last one. Oh, I love that. Giving them a healthy snack and then giving the opportunity for choice. That's really beautiful. The last one is communicate. So it's really important that we create systems and structures that allow us to communicate with our youth when we are with them. No matter how hard, no matter how much they might pretend like they don't like it, creating systems and ways in which we communicate with them is really important to supporting them through difficult transitions. Um, Communication allows students to feel understood, to feel heard. Even I, I remember when I was working at a elementary school, I used to stand at the door every day and just like um, tell a joke, and then ask kids how they were doing as they were coming in. And I remember there was one day that I wasn't there. So first of all, I would say like usually they would walk past me. It was early morning, and just like have their heads down, like, "Hey, Mr. Dobbin." But one day I wasn't there, and they're like, the next day I came to school, and they're, "Where were you at? We didn't see you asking us how your day was." So whether students show it or not, they really appreciate you checking in and asking them about their day. It does help them feel heard and seen. And it gives adults an opportunity to just notice how they're doing and have a quick check-in with them, and be able to be aware of different of ways in which the youth are might be struggling or might be succeeding. So there are lots of different ways that you can have communication check-ins. One of the things that I recommend is definitely trying to have open-ended questions. You can use unique questions. You don't always have to ask just "How was your day?" You can change it up. One of my favorite questions I like to ask is, if you could relive something that you did today, what would it be? You can ask them, what's something that surprised you? What's something that made you laugh? In the QR code right here at the top of the screen, there's a list of 50 types of questions that you can ask your youth to check in on their day. Sometimes, if possible, you can check in with with the youth without it being verbal. You can have a visual check in with them. You can say, "Fist of five, how was your day today?" And that can just give you a clue to how they're doing if they might not be in a mood to talk. You can make it a game. One of my favorite things to do with the elementary school students was to put some check-in questions on a little sheet of paper, 1 to 6, and then have them roll a dice. And it was amazing how much more they would open up if I put it in the frame of a game versus just asking them. I was accomplishing the same thing, but because it was a game, they were excited to tell me about their day. So you can make your own. There's a lot online that you can print, but you can make your own and gear it towards the type of questions that you want to ask your youth. And then lastly, when we are having consistent check-ins, it normalizes when a youth needs help, right? So if we wait until there's a crisis or there's a struggle or there's a panic attack for us to check in with our youth, it might feel awkward for them to open up about their day. But if we're consistently checking in with them, asking them how their day is going, then it normalizes those conversations, and I think it creates avenues for them to share openly and honestly about how they're doing. So it's important to make sure we keep those avenues open and those doors open. I was going to have us play the dice game, but we're running short on time, so we'll keep going. The last thing I just want to say is that if you find that your youth is struggling with their transition, it's okay. Struggling with things is a really normal thing, and as we talked about before, transitions are hard, and it takes support and loved ones in order for us to get to the other side of them. I recently heard a story of there was a butterfly, and it was getting ready to come out of its cocoon, and then a little kid saw it, and then they opened the cocoon so that the butterfly could get out of it, and then the butterfly fell straight to the ground because the butterfly needed to struggle against the cocoon to build up its muscles so that it could fly on its own. So it's okay to let our youth struggle through some of those transitions, because it helps them to build some resilience, as long as we're giving them some support along the way. So to wrap up, remember your strengths and that your community is lucky to have you. They're lucky to have people who are as loving as you. People talked about how they were understanding and caring and how they love people just as they are. Your community needs that. And I hope that you're able to recognize that, even in the moments where it feels like things aren't going the way that you hope, even if maybe your room looks like the picture that we saw. I hope that you'll always be able to recognize the strengths that you bring to the communities and the environments that you are in. Second, front load your youth with expectations. So try to prepare them as much as you can to know what to expect so that they can feel like they're able to be present and not worry about what's next or what's coming. Third, have routines and structures and procedures and systems in place so that your student can feel safe and rested and be able to engage in their environments. And then lastly, keep an open door for communication. Whether you use a game to do it, whether you use some really creative, open-ended questions, make sure that you keep an open door of communication so that you can keep track of how your youth is doing as they are making their transition. So that's it. I wanted to leave some time at the end for questions, but this is my contact information. If you have questions that that I don't get the answer today, I am happy to communicate and talk with you offline and chat more. One QR code is a newsletter that our organization sends out. If you are interested in learning about some of the other trainings and things that we do, you can use that link to get to that. One link has a back to school toolkit that you can use to learn some more things about ways to help youth with the transition, particularly back to school. And then lastly, if you have some time and one more QR code to scan, there's a survey here that you can use to just give me some feedback. That always helps me know what's working well and what can be changed. So I'll open up the floor for any questions that anybody has now.
Thank you so much. We also have a survey, so he
Oh,
has his own individual survey, and Donna has just put in the chat if you could also fill out our PHW survey, and if there are any questions or concerns that you want to convey to him in our survey as well, you can do that. You can do both, but we really need you to do our PHW survey so we can report back to our funders. Thank you, Mr. Dobbin. Before you open up the floor, I just had two things I wanted to, I guess, circle back to. One, I realized that we probably like need a fuller session for you to explore some other things because it's so much when dealing with students. And one of the things that we try to support, or at least hope that churches and faith communities will consider, is mental health first aid for youth. And that's an actual training that hopefully congregations will be able to send an individual to, because as with your training, there are some things, especially when you open up communication, all kinds of things pop out. And so I know as a college educator, sometimes that was a scary moment of just saying, how are you doing? Because you got so much information that sometimes you don't even know how to process. The second thing I wanted to talk a bit with you about, or wanted you to possibly go a little bit more beyond transitions. Not only are our students transitioning into new school years, new schools, possibly new communities, they're transitioning into a period where just the community around them is changing, the environment is changing. And so let's say on Sunday, a youth worker went to, their Sunday school class, and students want to talk about maybe those topics on the news that, we're prepared to talk about with other adults, but some things that may be concerning to them. Like, how would you, and I know you can't answer that in a 4 or 5 minute discussion, but can you kind of give us a little sense of what we should consider, maybe how we can get some resources to begin having some of those really difficult conversations that maybe they may not share with their parents, but if there is a trusted person at the church or in their faith community, they may want to ask about something that's troubling them because of all that's happening around us.
such a beautiful question. Thanks for asking that. So just to make sure I respond directly to the question, is if a youth is having an experience where something's happening in their community and they just want a safe place to talk about it. Yeah. I think a couple things come to mind. The first is the hope is that people would create the containers for those conversations before they come up. So I think front loading them ahead of time, like when we talk about things, these are kind of the confines that we want to say, and we want to make sure that whatever you want your expectations to be, whether it's we don't belittle people in our group, we use I statements. So like maybe starting off your year with some communication norms so that you are building the skill set and building the knowledge ahead of time so that they know what to expect when they need to have those kind of conversations. That's the first thing that I would say. Secondly, modeling like how to be vulnerable and how to talk about different things because youth pick up the cues that we share. So modeling the appropriate way to talk about difficult things and challenging things. And then I think the third thing that comes to mind when it comes to creating safe spaces for youth is um to really make sure that you affirm the things that they have to say because sometimes with youth their perspectives can be belittled or people can not take them seriously, and so it's important I think to just affirm and um like let them know that the voice and the perspective that they have matters. And then like on the mental health side of things there's always parameters around like what you have to do if you hear certain things, so you can be honest with them. Like, this is a safe space. What you share is between you and me. But if you say something about hurting somebody else or hurting yourself or something that there are certain things that are kind of outside the confines of confidentiality.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions?
Yes, my name is Connie Blakesley, and I have a question for you. I have two grandchildren. Both of them are just started a new school, middle school, which can be a really difficult time. And especially when you have two children, one that is very extrovert, the other one very much an introvert. And as you have discussions, I always try to make things a game when I'm talking with them. But I think with a lot of middle school students, and I've noticed this with friends also, there's a challenge with trying to get away from one word answers. You'll ask, well, how was today? Fine, good. And I do try to ask them very specific questions, and make it fun, right? Like, well, how was your day today? And what did you do today that was fun? You can't say lunch. You can't say beginning or end of school. What was your favorite thing about today, right? But sometimes it's still difficult. You get those one word answers as they go through that independence phase. They're trying to figure themselves. And at the same time, you're around and keep that same relationship. Just wonder what your advice is for that.
Yeah, can you hear me? My computer froze there for a second. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
First,
mine did
first,
too.
okay. First, I love that you are just such an intentional like grandmother and that you're trying to see what is going on in their worlds and that you've already tried to make it fun and engaging. And something my mentor used to say is that when you plant something, um, the roots go down before they go up. So I just want you to know that you're planting so many seeds and they're making a difference, but you just might not see them right now. It might be years down the road that we're like, Grandma, you used to annoy me when you asking those questions. So I really appreciate it. So I want to encourage you with that. But then some other things that I wonder might elicit some questions. If you could give them a choice, you could say, all right, tell me about something that surprised you or tell me something funny. And so sometimes giving them a choice might encourage them to share more because then it's like they get to choose the thing that they're more excited to talk about. So that might be something that you can try. You could try making it a story. So it could be tell me a story about something that happened in gym class because it's hard to answer tell me a story with a one word answer. But yeah, I would say those are the two things that come to mind. Like give them a little bit of control and by giving them choice and then maybe invite them to tell a story.
Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you answer a question for me? I know sometimes depending on the school, like school counselors are really, they have a lot of work, a lot of paperwork. But how can parents best work with those in the school system to support their children? And, can we, and maybe that's something like we in churches can kind of help and encourage parents to do. Like, what are the ways, what are the best practices for working with the school counselor to support our students?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Yeah, there is it can be tough to to build those bridges, but I think the best school counselors and the best school staff, they have proactive measures that they're taking to reach out and build those bridges. But if that's not happening, then I think it's really advantageous and helpful for parents to reach out early. So before there's a problem happening, making a contact. Like I remember I had a parent who just like I think I met them at a grocery store. So obviously you can't just meet every school person in the grocery store. But I met her at a grocery store and we talked. And it was just so beneficial because then I met her son, and her son was really quiet, but because I met her son outside, like I just like had a greater awareness, and so every time I saw him in the school, I greeted him by name. We had built a little relationship. So again, you can't set up a meeting for with your school personnel in the grocery store, but I do think it's important to reach out early before something happens, just so that your school personnel is able to put a name to a face. So it might just be like, hey, I just want to call, introduce myself, and say I'm excited to be a member of your school. This is my name. Another way is to maybe, if you have some type of thing that you're good at, to let the school personnel know that you're willing to help in some sort of way if you have that availability, because that also gives you the opportunity to feel like you're a partner with them and you have things to contribute as well, and that you're on the team. And then I think the last thing that I'll say is this is selfish, but like school counselors and school personnel need some love. So if there's something that you see that they're doing well, just name it and let them know, because it goes a really long way. The days are long and hard for school personnel, and so just letting them know that you appreciate them, you appreciate the work that they do, you see them showing love, I think makes a huge difference, one, in the educators' lives, but also I think it helps to build a strong connection between the school and the family. So yeah, those are the three things that I would say.
Okay, and there's one last question in the chat, but to just tag on what you said, we're often in my sorority, we get invitations to be like proctors to come in when there's like times of testing. And I guess that's even something like a congregation or, volunteers at a church could actually come and do and support local schools by building rapport with the principal and the educators to kind of just be available to support during those times. And then the kids will then, have a different presence after you go through whatever channels it is to become a volunteer in those schools.
Yeah, I think being a proctor is a really great way to get plugged into schools, and there's always a need for proctors. And it really, gosh, I know it feels like a small thing, but I can't tell you how like relieving it was to see like the community show up as proctors and just have more boots on the ground. I,
Hmm.
I'll try to read the question in the chat.
Hmm.
How can we best support youth in the age of technology, and how social media is best ways? Whoa, that's a big one there. Yeah, I don't have any easy answers for you there, but I will say that there's a really good book um, called Anxious Generation, and in that book, he speaks a lot to some of the harm and the damage that social media has caused our youth, and offers some good solutions. So I would recommend reading that book. Um, but but yeah, that's a really tough one that there's no easy solution. But I think similar to what I was saying earlier, I know I'll wrap this up, but just like having open conversations about youth and what they're asking, and try not to condemn what they say, but validate like what they're interested in, what they're looking at, modeling for them like your own use of social media, how you use it, kind of bringing awareness, doing some media literacy with them, trying to teach them how to like identify like what's helpful, and then teaching them little phrases like don't fall into compare and despair, or um, just teach them little phrases like that so that they can be aware of ways in which social media can be harmful and things that they can do when they are on it.
Well, we want to thank you so much for your time with us this evening. As I stated, we're going to get your PowerPoint, and so we will be able to share that. That'll have all the QR codes as well as some of the advice and guidance you provided to us. Another thing we'll be sharing is just some resources from NAMI, North Carolina. Last week, they shared a number of resources for back to school and some different resources for parents and caregivers as it relates to as it relates to um, how to support our children in the school as school returns. And so Mr. Dobbin said, don't worry about his survey. You can feel free to do a survey, but we'll send out both links. So you'll have his survey embedded in his files. And then we'll also send you a link if you were unable to access it tonight. And so we thank all of you for being with us. You'll receive an email at the beginning of next week with all the information as well as the recording. We invite you to also attend our upcoming Abundant Life webinars that will be taking place throughout the next couple of months. Our next webinar is on September the 30th, and so that information will be going out. Please open our emails when you get information from Partners in Health and Wholeness and the North Carolina Council of Churches. We are so excited you are with us. And so as we would leave this place, but never God's presence, we leave with the love of God to love and to serve this world. Thank you so much for your time with us this evening. And we pray God's blessings over all of your churches, your families, and our community. Thank you so much. Have a blessed evening.